Welcome back. You're watching NewsX. Voting is underway all across the country, from UP, Bihar, Bengal, in Maharashtra, in Rajasthan. All of Kerala is voting, as is Karnataka. We have teams of people from right across the country in 25 different seats that they're voting, that are going to the polls today. Now joining us on the telecast, we have Mahima, my colleague, in a very interesting seat in Jodhpur, where of course the Union Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat is contesting from. In Nagaon, in Assam, Nibir Deka, my colleague, is standing by. Meanwhile, in Baka, Shakti is holding fort, and Arzu is there in Ghaziabad in western UP, right on the outskirts of Delhi. Let me hit the ground running with Mahima. Mahima, you've been traveling to Jodhpur multiple times in the past couple of weeks. How's the flavor on the ground right now? What are people telling you?
Well, Rishabh, if we talk about the scorching political landscape here, people are very excited to cast or to exercise their franchisee. We'll first quickly go to the people around here. भैया, आप किस चीज़ को लेकर, मुद्दे को लेकर वोट करने आए हैं?
कुछ नहीं, बस एक जागरूक नागरिक होने के खातिर।
अच्छा, अपना वोट कास्ट करने आए हैं। आपका मुद्दा क्या है? किस मुद्दे को लेकर वोट कर रहे हैं?
जो राम को लाएंगे हम उनको ही लाएंगे।
राष्ट्र का मुद्दा। आप किस मुद्दे को वोट कर रहे हैं?
जो राम को लाए हम उनको लाएंगे।
आप किस मुद्दे पे वोट करने आए आज?
महंगाई, बेरोजगारी।
महंगाई और बेरोजगारी। आप सर किस मुद्दे पर वोट करने आए?
महंगाई और
आप किस पर?
यही है बस, विकास के लिए।
आप विकास के लिए आए हैं। सर, आप किसके लिए आए हैं? किन किन मुद्दों पे, ऐसे कौन से मुद्दे हैं जिन पे वोट करेंगे?
मैं विकास के लिए।
विकास के लिए। आप सर, क्या, क्योंकि आप आए हैं, आप करते क्या है, मैं ये पूछना चाहूँगी।
चलाते हैं मैडम।
आप ऑटो चलाते हैं और आप इतनी मेहनत करके यहाँ पर आए हैं, क्या मुद्दा है यहाँ पर आने का? कि
ये मैडम, अगर ये चाहे तो बेरोजगार को रोजगार देना चाहे तो अगर दे सकते हैं, ये ठीक है। पार्टी ये तो सोचती नहीं है, और दुनिया भर का महंगाई हो रही है। भाई हमारे जैसे ऑटो वाला क्या करेंगे, आप खुद समझते हो।
तो
दिन में 500 रुपये कमाते हैं, इससे ज़्यादा हम कमा नहीं पाते हैं। एक तो महंगाई हो, अगर थोड़ा सा कंट्रोल कर ले, और एक बेरोजगारी हो जाए तो बढ़िया है। ऐसा
आप किस मुद्दे पर वोट करने आए हैं? अगर आपसे
मुद्दा हमारा कुछ नहीं है, बट देश की एक अच्छी प्रगति हो, एक अच्छा मतलब लोगों को एक रोजगार मिले, और जो भी मौजूदा सरकार जो चल रही है, मेरे को लग रहा है वो एक अच्छा काम कर रही है भारत के लिए, राष्ट्र के हित में काम कर रही है। तो हम उसको देखते हुए हम आज हमारा वोट करने आए हैं, और हमें लगता है कि आने जो भी सरकार आएगी वो इन सब मुद्दों को लेके काम करेगी और देश को एक अच्छे प्रगतिशील।
Okay, all right, Mahima, thank you. We've got a very quick flavor, okay, from quickly 12 voters right there. So yes, in Jodhpur in Rajasthan, Ram Mandir at least is in the first thing that comes to the mind when you ask what is the issue here. For some people, yes, it's about building a better nation and development. But for some people, it is jobs. It's about inflation. They think those are the problems. Very interesting perspective there. Mahima just spoke with the candidate of the BJP, the incumbent Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, just a few minutes ago. Let's listen in.
आज किस तरीके, कितना आश्वासन लग रहा है, कितने मत पड़ेंगे?
आश्वस्त नहीं, विश्वस्त हैं। मतदान प्रतिशत भी बढ़ेगा और भारतीय जनता पार्टी प्रचंड बहुमत के साथ विजयी होगी।
सर, अगर प्रतिशत की बात करते हैं तो फर्स्ट फेज में इतने वोटर टर्नआउट नहीं कर पाए थे। इस बार वोटर्स को क्या मैसेज, और आपको क्या लगता है कि इस बार कितने प्रतिशत जोधपुर के
वोटर टर्नआउट नहीं होना कहीं भी लोकतंत्र में स्वीकार्य नहीं है, और निश्चित रूप से वोटर टर्नआउट बढ़ना ही चाहिए। ये न केवल पॉलिटिकल पार्टियों की जिम्मेदारी है, मतदाताओं की जिम्मेदारी है, अपितु जो व्यवस्था पक्ष है, चाहे इलेक्शन कमीशन है, स्टेट का इलेक्शन कमीशन है, डिस्ट्रिक्ट का एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है, उन सबको इस पर विचार करना चाहिए।
आखिरी सवाल, कितना मार्जिन, क्योंकि पिछली बार वैभव गहलोत को हराया था, इस बार करण सिंह है, तो कई आकलन।
आंकड़ों की बाजीगरी को छोड़ दीजिए। मैंने पिछले चुनाव में भी कहा था कि प्रचंड बहुमत से जीतेंगे, परिणाम आपके सामने था, 2,75,000 वोटों का मार्जिन था। उससे पिछली बार भी कहा था कि प्रचंड बहुमत से जीतेंगे, 4 लाख से ज़्यादा वोटों से जीतेंगे। आज फिर कह रहा हूँ, प्रचंड बहुमत से जीतेंगे।
तो ये थे गजेंद्र सिंह शेखावत, जिनका साफ तौर से कहना है कि इस बार भी प्रचंड बहुमत से भारतीय जनता पार्टी की जो सरकार है वो आएगी। 400 पार का जो नारा है वो जोधपुर की जनता सपोर्ट में या सिद्ध करती हुई नजर आएगी। वीडियो जर्नलिस्ट हिमांशु के साथ महिमा कटारिया, IT।
Okay, there you had it. Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, of course, hoping that he can take the seat. He should be feeling confident. He's done it before. Let me hop across to another part of the country in Western Uttar Pradesh, which is literally in the national capital region, Ghaziabad, where my colleague Arzu is standing by. Arzu, interesting. What are the thoughts of the people there on the ground in UP meanwhile?
Well, yes, in Uttar Pradesh, the voting is going on the 3 Lok Sabha seats, on 8 Lok Sabha seats, and right now we are in the Ghaziabad where the voting is taking place. In fact, we want to go across the voters. What is in their mind this time? Sir, वोट डालने आए हैं, गाजियाबाद के क्या कुछ इश्यूज हैं?
देखिए, गाजियाबाद दिल्ली से सटा हुआ लोकसभा क्षेत्र है। सब हम क्योंकि एक मतदाता के नाते देखें तो हमारे सामने सबसे बड़ा इशू है राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा का। हमारा देश किस तरह सुरक्षित रहे, हमारे जो बच्चे हैं जो पढ़ लिख के बाहर जाना चाहते हैं, विदेशों में हमारे देश की कैसे मजबूत एक पहचान बने। और जहाँ तक यूपी का सवाल है तो यहाँ लॉ एंड ऑर्डर एक बड़ा मुद्दा है, रोजगार एक बड़ा मुद्दा है। लोगों को चाहिए रोजगार, चाहिए शिक्षा, चाहिए
रोजगार एक बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा है। सर, गाजियाबाद के क्या मुद्दे हैं, किन चीज़ों को ध्यान में रख के आपने वोट किया है?
मेन सुरक्षा का ही है,
क्योंकि क्राइम कैपिटल नाम से जाना जाता है।
हाँ, इसीलिए सुरक्षा योगी जी से आने से सुरक्षा का तो बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा हुआ है। अच्छा। और इसीलिए भाजपा का ही वोट दें।
सो सिक्योरिटी इज द इशू। सर, क्या मुद्दे हैं गाजियाबाद के जिनको ध्यान में रख के आप?
ओनली फॉर मोदी।
Why? The reason, the work that
मोदी ने जिस देश के लिए जो काम किया कोई नहीं कर पाया, ना कर सकता है, ना कर पाएगा।
मैम, महिलाएं क्या सोचकर आज वोट कर रही हैं? आपने क्या सोचा वोट करने से पहले?
ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट एंड रेप में स्ट्रिक्ट पनिशमेंट होनी चाहिए। सबसे बड़ी फ्रीडम कब होगा हमारा इंडिया? जब तक लेडीज सुरक्षित नहीं होंगी, रात को 12 बजे अकेले घूमे तो उन्हें को छूने वाला नहीं होना चाहिए।
तो अभी क्या हालात हैं गाजियाबाद के?
गाजियाबाद के हालात किसी से छुपे हुए नहीं है, सब कुछ पता है। लड़कियों के साथ छेड़खानी, ये सब चीज़ें, इनके लिए एक अच्छी पनिशमेंट होनी चाहिए, स्ट्रिक्ट पनिशमेंट, जो अभी तक हमारे इंडिया में नहीं आई है।
मैम, आपने वोट किया?
हाँ जी, करेंगे जी।
अपना निशान दिखा दीजिए, प्रूफ दिखा दीजिए।
नहीं, अभी हम
करने जा रहे हैं।
हाँ जी, करने जा रहे हैं।
क्या मुद्दे हैं दिमाग में जिनको लेकर आप वोट करेंगे अभी?
मेन सेफ्टी, और दूसरा क्राइम यहाँ पहले से कम है, पर क्राइम अभी भी बहुत है। क्राइम कम हो, मोदी जी आएंगे या योगी जी आएंगे तो कम से कम लेडीज़ को सेफ्टी मिलेगी, घर से बाहर निकलेंगे, काम करेंगे। नेचुरली डेवलपमेंट तो होगी जब सेफ्टी होगी, इंसान सिक्योर होगा।
Okay.
तो सब बेटर लगता है।
You're getting a flavor of voters there in Ghaziabad. It's a constituency, of course, in which the BJP has changed the sitting candidate as we speak. It was, of course, the former army chief who's been a union minister for 10 years there. Let's hop across to Assam now, in Nagaon, where my colleague Nibir Deka is standing by. Nibir, what are people there on the ground saying?
Yes, we are here in Nagaon town today. There is a very interesting election going on. The BJP is taking on the Congress, but we are going to join with the voters to find out what the agendas they think before coming to vote here. नमस्कार, आपका नाम? आप यहाँ के वोटर हैं, क्या इशू लेके आप आए हैं वोट देने के लिए? कुछ सोच के आए होंगे, क्या इशू आपके लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है? आपका नाम प्रिया? Okay, so as you can see here, the people are here since morning and they are waiting in large numbers, and they are waiting here to cast their valuable vote. आपका नाम? क्या सुबह से आप लाइन में हैं? क्या इसलिए लेके आए हैं वोट देने के लिए? And very interestingly, we have the MP here with us who is here to vote, and the MP is on the line since morning. Hello, welcome sir. सुबह से आप लाइन में हैं, हमारे एडिटर इन चीफ भी जुड़े हुए हैं हमसे NewsX पे। सुबह से आप लाइन में, आप क्या मूड है आपका?
मूड का बात नहीं चलता, क्योंकि आई एम वेरी प्राउड दैट आई एम casting my vote as an Indian citizen. But that's the different matter that this line is painstakingly slow for more than.
But you have set a good example, waiting in line.
Good. I should.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have the feeling of entitlement.
Yeah. How confident you are?
Oh, of course I'm confident.
Yeah.
Of course I'm confident.
There was a big campaign against you in here by the BJP, but you're still hopeful to get the edge.
The BJP politics of polarization. People are sneaky. People are unsure. People are going to reject.
There you have it. The incumbent MP Pradyut Bordole waiting in line since morning to cast his vote. There are lots of people here. You can see the queue is a huge queue here. Women voters are on my right, and on my left are the male voters. They are waiting here since morning. We are going to speak with you of them. Aapka naam bhaiya? So you can see here they are waiting, and the MP is also waiting here. There is
very, very interesting. Last time around when you were reporting to this time around, people being less vocal or a bit shyer and camera shy this time around, which is interesting. A lot of people just are. Okay, as you can see, Rahul Dravid casting his vote, of course, in Bengaluru this morning. Okay, Nibir, just stay with me. Our guests are still with us. Meanwhile, let me hop across to get a perspective in from Bihar this morning, where in Baka, my colleague Shakti is standing by. Shakti, क्या चर्चा चल रही है? क्या मुद्दे हैं मतदान के?
जी बिल्कुल, देखिए फर्स्ट फेज में जहां बिहार में कम वोटिंग हुई थी, लेकिन इस बार जो है सेकंड फेज में आप देख सकते हैं कि किस तरह से बूथों पे लंबी लंबी कतारें हैं, न सिर्फ महिलाओं की बल्कि पुरुषों की भी, दोनों लंबी लंबी कतारें जो हैं लोग यहाँ पे मौजूद हैं। और हम बात करेंगे कुछ महिलाओं से यहाँ पे जानेंगे कि क्या मुद्दे हैं इस बार के चुनाव में, क्या मुद्दे हैं मैम इस बार के चुनाव में, क्या सोच के वोट करने आई है इस बार?
अभी इस बार का तो चुनाव मुद्दा हम लोग का यही है, जैसे नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने बहुत महिलाओं लोग के लिए सबसे ज़्यादा सुविधा दिया है, वो सुविधा हम लोग भी यही चाहते हैं कि यहाँ के लोग को भी वो सुविधा मिले।
क्या सोच के वोट करने आई है इस बार?
की बोल रहे हो?
आप बताएं क्या सोच के वोट करने आई है?
क्या सोच के वोट करने, अपना मतदान से जो स्वेच्छा होगा जिसको देंगे वोट उठ सब।
बिल्कुल, देखिए अब महिलाएं जो है बोल रही, कुछ हमारे साथ यहाँ पे कुछ पुरुष मतदाता भी, उनसे बात करते हैं। क्या मुद्दे हैं, क्या सोच के इस बार वोट करने आए आप लोग?
विकास हो, स्वास्थ्य हो, इसी पर ना वोट करेंगे और क्या।
विकास के मुद्दे पे वोट करने आए। इस बार काफी सुबह से लाइन में लगे हैं,
7 बजे से लगे हुए हैं।
क्या सोच के आए इस बार, क्या मुद्दा है इस बार बांका का?
क्या सोच है?
क्या मुद्दे हैं?
हाँ बहुत अच्छा है। हाँ बहुत अच्छा।
आप बताएं क्या सोच के वोट करने आए?
विकास चाहते हैं हम लोग, विकास चाहते हैं।
क्या कहेंगे?
हमारे बिहार में कम से कम 2-4 फैक्ट्री हो जाए तो बहुत अच्छी बात है। हम लोग के यहाँ का युवा सब बहुत बेरोजगार है। यहाँ से बिहार से जो है दिल्ली और कलकत्ता सब जाता है कमाने के लिए। 50% से ज़्यादा लड़का लोग यहाँ से जाते बाहर से हमारा बिहार कोई भी नहीं आता है कमाने।
आप क्या सोच?
हम यही सोच के आए हैं कि मोदी सरकार को जिताएंगे तो 2 बच्चा खुदा कम है, वो काम को आगे बढ़ाएगा।
क्या सोच के आए आप लोग?
मोदी सरकार का जीता जाएगा।
बिल्कुल, आप क्या कहेंगे, क्या सोचेंगे?
बढ़िया चीज़ है, सब चीज़ बढ़िया है, कोई दिक्कत नहीं।
आप क्या सोचते हैं?
हम तो मोदी जी को जिताने आए हैं भाई, और बढ़िया काम होना चाहिए। हम लोग को मोटिया आदमी है सर।
क्या काम करते हैं आप?
हम मोटियागिरी करते हैं सर। हाँ, हम सब बढ़िया काम को सोचने रहे हैं सर।
क्या मुद्दे हैं, क्या सोच के इस बार वोट?
विकास का मुद्दा है सर।
हाँ, मोदी जी को वोट दे रहे हैं। और
हम तो स्पेशली दिल्ली से यहाँ आए हैं, स्पेशली वोट डालने के लिए।
अच्छा, दिल्ली से वोट डालने?
परमानेंट दिल्ली रहता हूँ, लेकिन स्पेशली दिल्ली से वोट डालने के लिए आया।
क्या मुद्दे हैं, क्या सोच के वोट डालने आए इस बार, क्या चल रहा है?
क्या बताएगा, जो है गरीब को क्या चाहिए।
बात है नीतीश ने बर्बाद कर दिया, लेकिन बात है वो चलाना का वास्ते मोदी हमको चाहिए, यही सोचते हैं। काहे वो अच्छा काम कर रहा, यही सोचते हैं।
कुछ युवा भी हैं, क्या बन के सोच के आए इस बार वोट करने?
एक अच्छा नेता चाहिए और विकास चाहिए, और क्या चाहिए, सरकार से यही उम्मीद है।
इतना चोरी कुछ करवा रहा है।
आप क्या बोलेंगे इस बार, क्या मुद्दा है, क्या बांका में क्या मुद्दे हैं इस बार चुनाव में?
मुद्दा है कि डिलीवर है, रोड सही है, इसीलिए वोट दे रहे हैं।
रोड सही है, रोड सही है। युवा भी हैं, क्या सोच के आए इस बार? फर्स्ट टाइम वोटर है क्या आप? अच्छा, फर्स्ट टाइम है, क्या सोच के आए हैं, पहली बार आ रहे हैं?
रोजगार मिले और शिक्षा में आगे बढ़े, यही चीज़।
अभी फर्स्ट टाइम वोटर? अच्छा, क्या सोचे हैं, जब होती है ना कि जब हमारी उम्र सोचते हैं कि जब हम वोट करने लायक होंगे तो वोटिंग करने आएंगे, तो क्या सोच के?
वही विकास जो पढ़ने में अच्छा हो, और क्या, और हम सबको क्या चाहिए।
आप क्या कहेंगे, क्या आप सोचे?
हाँ।
दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है?
हाँ, राशन पानी मिल रहा है फ्री में, किसी को वोट देना है।
अच्छा,
और क्या,
राशन पानी मिल रहा है। बिल्कुल। कुछ लोग और भी हैं, क्या कहेंगे, क्या मुद्दा इस बार?
शिक्षा के लिए सर, देश का विकास हो। हाँ, और
क्या सोचे आप?
पानी थाने का अनाज पानी मिलता रहा,
बिल्कुल, देखिए जो लोग हैं इस बार विकास के मुद्दों पर वोट करने के लिए बांका में लोग मौजूद हैं, और काफ़ी संख्या में वोटर जो है सुबह से ही बूथों पे मौजूद हैं। जिस तरह से पहले फेज में जिस तरह से वोटर कम बूथों पे पहुंच रहे थे, लेकिन इस बार जो है बिहार में परसेंटेज जो है काफ़ी बढ़ने वाला है। क्योंकि
I'm going to come back to you and let's have this conversation, because on the issue of caste, on the issue of religion, is it a serious concern for people who are casting their votes? I'll come back एंड थोड़ा चर्चा करिए कि कास्ट रिलीजन, राम मंदिर, ये जो वेल्थ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है, कास्ट सेंसस है, इन डू पीपल एक्चुअली नो अबाउट दीज थिंग्स और इज इट ओनली दैट वी सिट हियर इन स्टूडियोज एंड थिंक दैट देयर आर सम आइडियोलॉजिकल बैटल्स एंड द पीपल आर टॉकिंग अबाउट समथिंग completely different. I'm going to come back to you, Shakti, in just a bit. You're watching on your screens Shashi Tharoor, of course, casting this vote this morning from Thiruvananthapuram. And he's going to be hoping that he can make it 4th time in a row and keep a secure seat for the Congress. Valuable seat, remember, from how the things have shaped up for the Congress in the last 2 elections. Every single Lok Sabha seat is valuable. Holding on to the position of at least being the number 2 party. The Congress would want to hit triple-digit seats this time around. They are at 50 plus. Many people would think that even an improvement here will only take them to 70, 75. There has been no Congress government ever in the history of the country that has been formulated with the Congress party having won less than 140 seats. It's never happened. Let me hop across before I get guests in to a last word from Mahima. Mahima, same question to you. Have these conversations that are happening from the top leadership, top leadership means, I mean, Narendra Modi, top leaders of the Congress party, the charcha right now has moved on from Modi guarantee to caste census and minority quotas, Ram Mandir, inheritance tax. Has this filtered down to the voters of the second phase? Anybody you've interacted with has felt that this is an issue?
Well, Rishabh, we'll straight away go across to voters who are present here. There's a long queue, but it is moving very slowly. So few new voters are here. If I can just go across and talk. Sir, आपका मुद्दा क्या रहेगा इस बार वोट करने का?
इनको पूछो, मेरे को नहीं पता। आगे पूछ लो।
सर, क्या मुद्दा रहेगा आपका वोट करने का?
बढ़िया से बढ़िया योजनाएं बने और बस जनता को लाभ हो।
आपको लगता है कि जिस तरीके से मैनिफेस्टो की बात चल रही है, जिस तरीके से पॉलिटिकल बिकरिंग चल रही है, एक तरफ इल्जाम लग रहे हैं इनहेरिटेंस टैक्स हो जाएगा या गोल्ड पर टैक्स लग जाएगा, उसको किस तरीके से आंकते हैं आप? उसको भी दिमाग में रख के कोई वोट करेगा?
देखिए, सब आपको अपना अपना अधिकार देने का, अपनी अपनी सरकार चुनने का, मुझे लगता है इस बार और बेहतरीन होगा।
सर, आप किस मुद्दे पर वोट करने आए?
मुद्दे तो है मैडम, काफ़ी सारे हैं। महंगाई हो गई है बढ़िया, पेट्रोल के भाव अभी तक कम नहीं हुए हैं, जैसे कहते हैं वैसे ही हैं। कुछ देखिए, कुछ वही मुद्दे ध्यान में रख के करेंगे वोट इस बार। बेरोजगारी भी है।
सर, आप किन मुद्दों पर वोट करने आए हैं? क्या मुद्दा रहेगा?
मुद्दा तो मैम ये रहेगा, सब कुछ सही हो जाए और सब सही है, आगे बात कीजिए।
So, Rishabh, you can clearly see people are a little shy here, but the basic or the keen interest of the people to vote here is development, employment, definitely employment, and few of the voters are here very keenly interested. They're keen on the Viksit Bharat agenda, Ram Mandir, of course. But when we spoke to one of the voter here, stating that whether the manifesto, whether the inheritance taxes, or it could be an issue for the vote, then not really after the
manifesto. Yeah, so we got a pulse here. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we've spoken to hundreds of people now this morning, most of whom have spoken live, and of course the reports are coming in literally every few minutes by our reporters on the ground. These are unadulterated. It is happening live. So, this is a reporter just walking up and speaking to people, and you're getting a flavor. Okay, the people who are really worried about inflation and worried about employment, that's fitting into the opposition line. Okay, the people who are talking very openly that Ram Mandir is an issue for them in Jodhpur of all places, not UP. Okay, so that has filtered through as an issue, but most people are talking about the core development. Okay, and that's really interesting, because the BJP is hedging its campaign on that being its plank. The opposition is hedging its campaign that, listen, caste is going to matter, and the old is gold is going to matter. So let me go across back to Baka and to Shakti. Okay, now Shakti, a lot of people from your state and the voters you've been talking about, one especially said that the जवान लोग हैं यहाँ छोड़ के जा रहे हैं, दिल्ली जा रहे हैं, कोलकाता जा रहे हैं, कि बाहर से कोई बिहार काम करने नहीं आता क्योंकि यहाँ पर रोजगार नहीं है. Now, this was a major issue for Tejasvi when he did a better performance in the state assembly elections. लेकिन जो मैनिफेस्टो के मुद्दे हैं, where you have the BJP saying कि हम रोजगार बना रहे हैं, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर ला रहे हैं, स्टार्टअप्स ला रहे हैं, the Congress is saying हम सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट जॉब गारंटी देंगे 30 lakhs की. Are these पॉइंट्स ऑफ डिस्कशन, इन पे चर्चा चल रही है?
जी बिल्कुल, देखिए जो केंद्र सरकार है, कहीं ना कहीं जो बीजेपी की सरकार है, उनके मैनिफेस्टो में रोजगार के मुद्दे हैं। और लेकिन तेजस्वी यादव ने कहा कि बिहार में उनकी सरकार आएगी अगर, तो साथ ही साथ केंद्र में अगर उन्होंने कहा कि अगर उनके एमपी ज़्यादा जीत के आएंगे तो बिहार में रोजगार के साथ साथ देश भर में रोजगार मिलेगा। और इस मुद्दे पर हम अब कुछ लोग हैं उनसे ही बात करते हैं। इस बार क्या लग रहा है, केंद्र रोजगार की बात कर रहे हैं, केंद्र सरकार, तेजस्वी यादव भी रोजगार की बात कर रहे हैं, क्या कहेंगे?
क्या कहेंगे, रोजगारी बहुत बढ़ गई है, तो रोजगारी सरकार अच्छा आएगा तो रोजगारी खत्म करेगी।
बिहार में रोजगार नहीं है, जो लोग हैं बाहर जाकर रोजगार करते हैं।
हाँ, यहाँ बिहार में नहीं है तो तभी तो बाहर जा रहे हैं। बिहार के 80% आदमी बाहर ही जाके रोजगार करते हैं, अपना पेट पालते हैं।
Shakti, do the other people looking for factories, do they want private sector employment, or are they thinking government job is still the best?
जी बिल्कुल, देखिए कुछ लोग और भी हैं। क्या लग रहा है कि जो रोजगार के मुद्दे हैं देश में, बिहार में रोजगार नहीं है। आप दिल्ली से आए हैं वोटिंग करने के, दिल्ली में क्या करते हैं आप?
दिल्ली में तो मैं सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड हूँ, बिजनेस करता हूँ अपना। हाँ,
बिहार में क्यों?
शुरू से ही दिल्ली रहा हूँ, लेकिन जन्मभूमि चूँकि मेरी ये है बिहार, तो यहाँ वोट डालने के लिए आया हूँ।
बिहार में रोजगार नहीं है, जो युवा है वो पलायन करते हैं बाहर में, तो क्या इस बार के चुनाव में मुद्दे?
नहीं, सबसे बढ़िया अगर बिहार में रोजगार की व्यवस्था हो जाए तो इससे बेहतर तो कोई बात ही नहीं है। मैं ये अच्छी तरह से जानता हूँ कि अगर यहाँ मिल जाए, रोजगार की व्यवस्था हो जाए, तो बिहार के जो भी युवा हैं वो कभी भी बाहर की ओर पलायन नहीं करेंगे। तो सबसे बड़ा मुद्दा ये है कि विकास के को देखते हुए यहाँ इंडस्ट्रीज वगैरह का लगना चाहिए।
बिल्कुल, बिहार में आप क्या कहेंगे?
विकास बिहार में होना चाहिए। हम लोग बाहर जाते हैं कमाने के लिए, यहाँ
क्या करते हैं?
यार मजदूरी करते हैं।
मजदूरी करते हैं
जी,
कहाँ?
यहाँ ही
अपने गाँव में। अच्छा, बिल्कुल, आप क्या करते हैं?
हम तो सर मुखियागिरी करते हैं, गाड़ी घोड़ा उतारते हैं सर, आता है तो उतारते हैं, नहीं तो घर में बैठते हैं। हम लोग चाहते हैं सर कि कैसी नीमक रोटी चले, बाल बच्चा को निभाए सरकार ने, ऐसे हम लोग चलते रहें और कमाते रहें। सरकार से प्रार्थना करते हैं।
खुद का धंधा, प्राइवेट सेक्टर नौकरी या सरकारी नौकरी?
जी बिल्कुल, क्या खुद के लोगों को अपना एम्प्लॉयमेंट का मतलब खुद की नौकरी भी है, लोग अपना बिजनेस भी करते हैं, या फिर सरकारी नौकरी?
नहीं, देखिए एम्प्लॉयमेंट का मतलब क्या होता है, कहीं भी ऑक्सफोर्ड के भी डिक्शनरी में आप जाइएगा, कहीं भी ये नहीं बोला गया है गवर्नमेंट जॉब। एम्प्लॉयमेंट मीन्स जॉब, स्वरोजगार हो, सरकार के द्वारा दिया गया हो या प्राइवेट कंपनी के द्वारा क्रिएटेड हो। ऐसा कहीं किसी भी वर्ल्ड के किसी भी डिक्शनरी में ये नहीं है गवर्नमेंट का जॉब। तो एम्प्लॉयमेंट तो हुआ ही है, बहुत सारा चीज़ हुआ है, बहुत जगह पे जो भी देखा गया, अभी $4 ट्रिलियन अर्थव्यवस्था पहुंच गया। जो इंग्लैंड हम लोगों पे राज करता था वो हम लोगों से 2 स्थान पीछे है। बस उसको देख करके सबको अपना काम करना है।
All right, Shakti, thank you. And let's keep addressing these themes through the course of the day because it's fundamentally crucial, because those are the hinge points, because there are going to be a bunch of people who have already decided which way they are voting, okay? And the crucial aspect of conversation this time around then becomes, is there an ideological fight? Is this election simply about Narendra Modi's performance, if you are a fan, or non-performance if you don't like what he's done, or is it about some points of ideology? Because the BJP is convinced that the wind is in the air, that India is moving ahead of just voting on lines of religion and caste. And we are now talking about the houses and the roads and what we need in terms of the aims and the IITs, and we're moving on or not. I'm going to thank my reporters. You want to come back to all these ground reports because they give the perspective, they connect us to what's happening, which is why it's so important, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm emphasizing at the top of every hour to spend half an hour speaking to people on the ground so that this doesn't just become a vacuous armchair conversation for the rest of us, disconnected from sitting in our studios and of course in our houses. Our guests are still with us. Alok Mehta is still with us. Javier Rodriguez still with us. Nikhil still with us. Gautam stayed with us. Gentlemen, thank you for your patience. I'm going to free my reporters so I can focus on my conversation with you this time around. Let me go back to Alok ji. Alok ji, so let me ask you this fundamental question, and it's a tough one because it is rooted in the Indian imagination. in all families for many decades that the best job to get in the country is a government job. And the opposition party has latched on to that, and they said that, listen, if we give you a government job guarantee, that's the big ticket item that people are interested. They don't understand this Rozgar and opening your own dhanda business. Is there an ideological fight there?
Shabji, very interesting, because see, from northeast to south and North India, see, I feel that one should feel proud about it, that people are more aware about the development, progress, leadership, ideology. You are talking about the employment issue. It's a major issue in North India. And even North India, people who are doing their own business, they are also happy and they want more development, infrastructure. This is a very mixed reaction. And then the Hindutva. For women voters, what I understand, that they are also feel more because they feel proud because they are religious. So Ayodhya is the issue. But at the same time, they also want their children better education, better health services. So these kind of, but it's a very educating. Since last 2 hours, what we are talking about it, I think our reporters also reporting it. And that's why the major issue, and Modi, just because of the development and what he's delivered, maybe one can differ about it. The Congress party also promises a lot. One more point, you see, when we visited, I went with the Rajiv Gandhi in West Bengal, and I wrote about it, Lal Salam to Rajiv Gandhi for Congress. You see, same thing happening with the BJP. Now the BJP is going in South India. Maybe they are not getting vote, but ultimately they are going on a good ground for there.
Okay.
At the same time, in the Karnataka, Advani started in 82, or earlier days also, but Advani started 82, 83, and they got result in the Karnataka. So these kind of mixed political ideology and development, and who deliver, they will vote for them.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot comprehend, nobody can. Okay, it doesn't register because there are numbers which have never been dealt with, not even by the Chinese. Okay, staggering figures. So let me get Nikhil in. Nikhil, now there's no denying it, all right. The biggest issue going ahead in the country for the next decade is ensuring that we are growing fast enough and creating employment at a very, very fast pace, because it's a make or break moment. If we are not creating 30, 40, 50 million new jobs a year, okay, we are going to be in a crisis in a few years. Now, there are strategies. Of course, the Congress in its manifesto talks about startup, but repeatedly the Bharatiya Janata Party has said that, look, every time we build a road or we build a highway, we provide employment. Every time we pick up a central government project, we provide employment. That we are convinced that people are going to be empowered through self-employment. We are going to give facilities to those who are ready-walas, to those who are shop owners, we'll give them loans. And the Congress, even though it talks of startups and others, but its big ticket item has been, look, 30 lakh central government jobs, because for a lot of people, there is a comfort surety, and lakhs of people are studying right now in Kota, dreaming about that central government job. Is there an ideological fight on this?
Rishabh, I don't think there's an ideological fight. There is just that there is one party which is not willing to release any data, that is trying to find proxy measures to tell the people of the country that there is employment in the country, whether it is time and again using the EPFO data, whether it is talking about itna highway ban gaya to rozgar aaya, doctor bana to usne compounder rakha, lawyer bana to usne munshi rakha, instead of actually giving the numbers on employment and or to add injury.
No, but Nikhil, the EPFO data is at record highs. You know it's record highs. That's not enough.
But no, but there is one very important fact to it. EPFO is something that would only impact the organized workforce in the country. However, 93% of the people employed in this country are in the unorganized sector. So what we are talking about when we talk about EPFO data is only 7% of the workforce. Number one. Number two, Pradhan Mantri adds, salt to the wounds when he says ki pakoda talna bhi rozgar hota hai. On a very technical terms, it may be, but that's not the kind of employment that the Prime Minister came promising. However, the Congress party is offering a clear target in terms of the Apprenticeship Act. The Congress is not only saying the 30 lakh government jobs, they're also talking about the Apprenticeship Act. They're also talking about rolling back of the Agnipath scheme. They are talking about creating new avenues for the youth to, skill themselves and gain employment. They are talking on real ideas, unlike the Prime Minister. These are all proxy numbers.
Okay, but how can you say that providing loans, Mudra loans, or providing loans under Swanidhi, that those are not real ideas, that these are all fuzzy ideas?
No, I'm not saying that's not a real idea. That's a very good idea, but the Prime Minister has not been talking about it. See, one can make a business, a self-employed, a small business can make use of a loan only when there is the right economic situation for that. When you bring in a GST, wherein you do not, where you have such a complex mechanism for GST, and people above 20 lakhs require a registration, below that you can do without a registration.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt about it, okay, that the GST is a very complex mechanism. But I can tell you one thing, every state having its own taxes under VAT was far worse. All right, so let me get Gautam back into this conversation. Gautam, thanks for patiently listening in as we got our ground report sorted out, because they educate what's happening on the ground. It's nice to hear the flavor. So let me ask you a straightforward question. There is no way, Jose, okay, that the union government or the state governments are going to employ everybody in this country. That can only be a small percentage. Maybe if you're lucky, 1% of the working population. So the majority of the jobs have to come from the private sector. The majority of that is going to be unorganized. So why come out with a 30 lakh government job guarantee? What is the plan then for generating employment in the unorganized sector?
There is vacancy of over 1 million jobs in the central government itself. There are people who want those jobs. What stops Mr. Narendra Modi and the BJP government at the center to just fill those vacancies and place those people where they need to be placed? So the Congress says that we give you a guarantee that we won't let any vacancy be vacant. We will make sure that the vacancy is filled by the rightful person, by the person who is capable of holding that position, by the person who is capable of taking up that job. So I felt so much of contentment watching Mr. JP Nadda speaking today when you telecasted his message. The man has nothing to talk about 10 years of Narendra Modi's work. He's talking about Jawaharlal Nehru ji. He's talking about Manmohan Singh ji's speeches. And look at the fierce psychosis in which the BJP is living these days.
Okay.
Look at the speeches and the body language of the Prime Minister.
I'm going to come to that, but I want to stick to jobs because, ladies and gentlemen, there is a flavor emerging, and it's pretty obvious. I was sitting here and listening into the first phase, and sitting here and listening to the second phase. If there's one thing that's going to make a difference in this election, it's employment. Okay, everything else is secondary. It's going to make a difference. Asavi, I'm coming to you. Now, the figures, Gautam and Nikhil just pointed out, we don't have figures. The figures tell us that the UPA created just about 7 lakh jobs in 9 years. Okay, we're talking about filling central government vacancies. In the 10 years of Modi, they filled 10 lakh government vacancies. So why couldn't you fill all the vacancies, or the UPA fill its vacancies during its time as well?
If you look at the statistics of unemployment during the UPA era and the statistics of unemployment...
No, I'm talking about specifically on government jobs, because you say that there are 10 lakh jobs available and they're not being filled by the center. The UPA, because this is a data we know for sure, it's not a random data, okay, which is from some agency and it's hypothetical. Government jobs data is the only authentic data on employment that the UPA filled, and the figure is this. That the NDA gave 8,82,191 jobs in the central government, vacancies filled, as compared to 9 years of the UPA, 6,02,045.
At the end, how do you measure that the government has delivered on joblessness or not? You measure it through the unemployment rate. And if you compare it to the Narendra Modi's era and to that of Dr. Manmohan Singh's era, the answers are there for you to see. It wasn't as worse as it is today. We have the unprecedented unemployment going on, the most highest in the last 40 years. And you're talking about 7 lakh jobs being filled by us.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put the caveats out there, and whether you hear this data from me or from anybody else ever in life, what Nikhil has said is the absolute truth. We do not have accurate employment data for 90% of India's population. Okay. We have to only guesstimate that when we speak to people anecdotally on the ground and they're talking about employment, that it's a priority issue for them. Okay, so it's very difficult to debate data on jobs. We are not like Germany where you have cent %, or the US where every week the employment data comes out. We don't know this, so take it with a pinch of salt. So okay, so let me rephrase the question, Gautam. If there are about 10 lakh, 1 million central government vacancies, you have promised 3 million. Are you going to create 2 million central government positions?
No, as far as the government jobs that we have promised are concerned, also includes the jobs in the public sector undertakings, the PSUs, and the further arms and the sister concerns of them, which come under the government in one way or the other. So we are talking about a conclusive number, and we have a very well worked out plan behind it. It was well explained by our manifesto committee chairperson, Mr. P. Chidambaram, in his press conference.
Okay.
We did not talk about issues like inheritance, issues like properties going to the Muslims, properties going to the Hindus. We are talking about hitting on inflation. We are talking about hitting on unemployment. And I believe that is what matters to the people.
Okay,
in their
there may be some party colleagues who should not have been talking about inheritance there. Okay, I'm going to give Savio a chance to respond to all of this. Savio, I know you'll have some counter data, but I'm going to ask you the honest question. There is no doubt about it that people out there, their number one priority is earning a living for themselves. Okay, I am not convinced completely that a new generation of people is as hungry for the comfort and security of government giving a job. They want to be entrepreneurial. But have you convincingly created the level of growth needed to create 50-60 million jobs a year?
Yeah, Rishabh, let's look at this not from a perspective of only data, but let's look at it as a perspective of foundation for us to create jobs over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Because what you're living in is a highly competitive economic world, and therefore India has to be able to cater to that world and the growing changes in the world. So let's look at little bit at data, because we look at EPFO numbers and you look at the NPS numbers, you will see that there's 266.73 million registered people as per both these data points. But in the unorganized sector, I'm not sure how many of you all are aware, but there is a mechanism to look at data in the unorganized sector. And that mechanism is the eShram. The eShram has a registration of 295.34 million people. Those are workers in the unorganized sector. Domestic household workers, there is a mechanism for tracking it as well. Currently, for the up to March 2024, there's 44.485 million people over there. So it's not that we've got data all over. Yes, there will be some that have been left out, but the fact of the matter is that the government is working on getting the unorganized sector data. Now, what are you looking at? Let's look at startups itself. During the UPA era, the startups were about 350. Right now, they're 1,17,215 new startups. Look at the employees in the micro enterprise, which are not a part of
but Savio,
EPFO
you
and
know
NPS.
what this is about. Okay, but Savio, you understand it.
Million.
I mean, come on. You've been writing, publishing, and commentating for decades. Okay. There is, for a lot of people in this country, for families, and this has been because we've been a poor country for the majority of our existence, the comfort, need and security. There is an entire industry that runs, okay, that employs lakhs of people who are just training crores of people to compete for sarkari naukri. For every single job, there are thousands of applications. Now, the Congress is saying that there are two main components: central government jobs and the army recruitment, which in many areas was a big thing. And they are saying Agniveer is a problem and not filling central government jobs and thinking about it is a problem. You are saying we are going to create employment opportunities, but this is a sure thing. Aren't they right?
No, let's look, because you're looking at, you rightly said, Rishabh, you're looking at two aspects of it. The definition of job and employment in the Indian context is seen in two ways. One is government job, the other one is private jobs. That's how you look at it. And the third aspect, of course, is self-employment. Now, there is an imminent need for people to have government jobs because that's where they feel security with. And because they know that governments could change, but their jobs cannot change. And therefore, even if you were to go out into an average person and say, would I get a government job or should I get a government job? They would say yes. The point is everybody in the country, with the way we are growing in terms of population, do you think it is right for the government to only focus on providing government jobs?
Okay. So that's the ideological issue here. Okay, that's the one. Do you want a bigger government or do you want a leaner government? Okay. Now, we've had this ideological issue before where during the time of Indira Gandhi, many of the industries were nationalized. Air India was taken over by the Indian state under Indira Gandhi from the Tatas. Then, of course, the public administrative system sunk it to the ground, and then many decades later, at a huge loss, sold it back to the Tatas. So, there's an ideological issue over there. Let me get Alok Mehta into this conversation. Alok ji, now, we are moving away from the generation of my father, where even the private sector job was not considered. If you didn't get government job, so if you did not become Sarkari Afsar, you became either an engineer, doctor, chartered accountant, architect, some professional degree, okay, was sought after. The people who did dhanda, okay, and I promise you, sir, there are panwadis out there and cholawalas and pakodawalas who earn more than news editors in this day and age. Okay, that's the truth. Okay, journalism not a high-paying job, but that was the era. That era has now changed. Now people want to play cricket. They can make a living. People can make a living in sports, which was not a big deal 30-40 years ago. But there is a comfort, sir, in Sarkari Naukri, and the Congress is saying that we will provide that comfort. Is there an ideological war here?
Rishabh, this is the old formula which a Congress party is still doing, this public sector. You are right, he said. At that time, I can understand Mrs. Gandhi, when she did this nationalization of the mines, coal mines, I went to Dhanbad and this area. And at that time, it was necessary because the private owners were just exploiting them. But you see, the situation changed all over the world. Now, we were dominated by the Soviet regime at the time, ideological. So, it means ideologically, we were very left. Again, Congress party is doing the same thing. Because the public sector, you see what happened in the Poland, what happened in the Czech Republic, what happened in the East Germany. You see, these kind of old formula which they are talking. But certainly the self-reliance, what Mr. Earlier our friend was talking about it, people want their own comfort also. Even number of families, because they want to do simultaneously. When they go for examination either in UP or UPSC, they are also doing some job. People, private jobs or private working, they are working somewhere. So when we give figure 40 lakhs people applied, maybe in 40 lakhs, 10 lakhs must be working some other work. They are doing some other jobs, private jobs. But because these kind of figure, you just confuse people with unemployment. You see in the Britain or Europe, you see people who are not even the graduate, they are very happy because they think they can do something other job. But here, the only people think that they're respectable. What the British era was there, that if you have government job, and one point, Rishabhji, because our friend is there, now we need less government job because the computerization which credit goes to Rajiv Gandhi, even if you say Rajiv Gandhi, not the Modi. No need for people. Even the media, people are working more digital. We don't need a chaprasi, you don't need a proofreader, we don't need any operator and this kind of thing. Everybody is doing same thing in the industries. That's why small industries, the technology development is also a part. And one other, last point, Digvijay Singh started the government job on contract. He told me in a editors meeting in Delhi at the time when he was chief minister, because government teacher is not working, that's why we give, and you can imagine, just 1,800 he was paying for a contract job. Ultimately, he lost the election because people who just got the job for the 2,000 rupees, they opposed him.
Okay, so let me get Nikhil on this. Nikhil, this is a fundamental issue because this is a thinking, ideation, ideological, and on the basis of which policy is formulated issue. Okay, the impact of which is felt by the people of the country. So let me talk about the Agniveer scheme now. Now, Nikhil, under the Agniveer scheme, you know this. For people watching the broadcast, you need to be reminded. The government says that instead of providing people who are NCOs or just army jawans, recruits, who would be expected to serve if they got lucky and got promotion to NCOs from the age of about 17, 18 till the age of 30, maybe 31, 32. So they would get a good decade, maybe a decade and a half. After a decade and a half, they would then get a pension, which would be a percentage of their last drawn salary. Now, Agniveer says that you will only be a recruit for 4 years. We will pay you for 21,000 rupees a month in hand for the first year, 23,000 for the second year, 26,000 for the third year, and 28,000 rupees a month for the fourth year. This is in hand. Then at the end, we are going to give you 12 lakh rupees as a lump sum. It's called a golden handshake. So if you join at 18, at 22, you spend 4 years, and the training, of course, is happening at the expense of the exchequer. You earned a salary for the entire period, okay, of an average of 25,000 rupees a month, okay, and you get a lump sum of 11 lakh rupees at the age of 22. There will be very few people in this country, including people I know, who would get a check of 12 lakh rupees or have 12 lakh rupees to deposit somewhere or invest somewhere. If you just invest in and get a 10% return, that's giving you 1.2 lakhs a year, which is about 10,000 rupees a month, which can be pension. So it's a different way of looking at things. So Nikhil, why wouldn't this be the new liberal, modern way of looking at the army?
Because, Rishabh, that is not how the Indian Army has been. There has been strong opposition from army officers. There have been strong opposition from people who are retired Jawans. There has been strong opposition from people who are aspirants. And for the simple reason that earlier when you had a Jawan, you trained the person for a year. That person had that security that if I die, I'd get the status of a martyr. My family would be taken care of. If I suffer from a disability, I'd get a pension. I would have that security in my life. And that is what, kept the person going at a stage of war. But what is happening in Agniveer right now is that you have reduced the training period from 1 year to 6 months, which is also why you will see that in Agniveer, I think there is a higher rate of fatality in the Jawans vis-a-vis the Jawans who were regularly trained. You are keeping that person for 3.5 years. And so many army experts have talked about this, that you cannot create an army soldier right in day one. You first train the individual, then you put them on the field, and it's only after a couple of years that the person really, it takes some time for something to be made. And that is by the time the person is equipped enough, mentally strong enough to be on the field, to fight a battle, you are retiring that person because you do not want to take the fiscal load of paying somebody a pension. And by the way, I was just checking that no Jawans retire. Anybody who joins as a Jawan, as an NCO, does not retire below the age of 42 years. And usually these people join at the age of 18 to 20 years. So they do serve for 20, 25 years in the army.
Yes.
And it's only after that.
The average would be about 15 years. And you have to do 15 years to qualify for a pension because the pension matters. Okay. This is what the conversation was. That 15 to 20 years, 15 years plus, 15 years minimum is your pension qualification. But Nikhil, but Nikhil, let me take the mathematical argument. No, so the mathematical argument tells me, okay, that if I have 12 lakh rupees today, okay, and I invest them at a reasonable rate of return and a mixed portfolio, okay, that people like you and me would have, we would be expecting a 10% return on our portfolio on an annual basis, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the minimum pension the Indian Army gives is 9,000 rupees a month, okay. A typical person retiring would be getting 30% of their salary. So they will be getting 15 to 20,000 a month if on the higher end. By just putting in 12 lakh rupees into an investment fund, you would get 10,000 rupees a month. Why is that not a new way of looking at pension? What's wrong with that?
You cannot expect Jawans who are coming from the rural hinterlands to be investing their money in mutual funds. I'm sorry, but that's not how it works. Only 2 or 3% of the country, or perhaps recently now 5 or 6% of the country is willing to invest in the stock market, because at the end of the day, mutual funds most of them are equity-based funds. They rely on stock markets, which are not secure. You cannot compare the security with a pension.
Even a fixed deposit, if you're lucky, can give you 8.5%.
Fixed deposit
7%. Yeah.
I don't think fixed deposits give 8.5% anymore. But all right, even if they are to give 8%, then you're looking at about 1 lakh a month. sorry, a lakh a year, right?
Just over a lakh a year.
Lakh a year. I don't think that the pension of the Indian Army Jawans today is only 10,000 a month. And again, it's not just about the fiscal aspect of it. It's not just about the job creation aspect of it. The biggest problem, see, when you talk to an aspirant, obviously their problem would be with in relation to the job security not being there in the Agnipath scheme. But I am on the other point of national security.
Yeah.
I am more on the point of national security, that the Agniveer scheme is not the right approach for national security, because so many of the people who were preparing for armed forces have stopped preparing from armed forces. There is a lack of motivation. There is a lack of security in the Jawan. There is a lack of training. There is
many years ago, before Narendra Modi was a figure in national politics, the Indian Army came up with something called a Short Service Commission. And the reason they came up with the Short Service Commission...
That was 10 years.
Yeah, the reason...
10 years. Rishabh, that was 10 years for officers, and they had proper training. This is where the training has been halved, and it is only 4 years, and even a Short Service Commission.
Up with the Short Service Commission was to attract people who did not want to spend their entire career in the armed forces, but did and were willing to spend their 20s and their early 30s in the armed forces.
For the officers.
There was a reason for that, and many people took it up. Now that can't be the backbone of the army, but it is. You're watching scenes, disturbing scenes going on your screens as we speak. I'm just going to interrupt the flow of this conversation before I come back to the other guests, just to have this conversation. So as you can clearly see, a verbal altercation has broken out. This is in Balurghat in West Bengal, where the BJP's Sukanta Majumdar is voting there. Spoke to us just a short while ago, BJP state president, and a conversation is underway. Listen, if it's a verbal altercation, and tensions can be high. In Bengal, of all places, tensions are often high. Okay, let me quickly get a thought in on the conversation we were having in a flow on this with Gautam before I give Savio a chance to respond. Okay, so now, Gautam ji, in a practical sense, the issue then comes down to this, and let's delve into this. The issue is that there is a young man from a village. Okay, maybe his father and grandfather have also been in the armed forces. All right, or at least community members in the village, and they aspire, and it's a matter of pride, but also a matter of job security, that if you get selected, if you meet the physical criterion to get selected, at least for the next 15 years, you have a job, you'll do the family proud, and you will earn a living. Now that is the comfort of the past. But the government this time is saying is that you get the job for 4 years, then you get a check, a big check, in addition to your pay. Why do people think that after 4 years they won't be able to invest the money, create a business, or find other employment?
I think it is absolutely baseless and stupid to apply the idea of trial and error in the Indian Army. How can you do that? It is like playing with the national security straight. You are training somebody to use the weapons. You're training somebody to be a part of the army and know the national secrets and the national talks that till now remain in the Indian Army itself. And then after 4 years, you let this person out in the open world in frustration of finding another job, in frustration of dealing with meeting the requirements of his daily livelihood. And in that frustration, what will he not do? Are you trying to create a parallel force of these frustrated men and women who go out after 4 years finding a livelihood for themselves and do not resort to you know what all? So this is an absolute insult to the idea of Indian Army's pride. This is an absolute insult by the Indian Prime Minister to what Indian Army stands for.
Okay, but Gautam, do you really think that the Armed Forces High Command signed off on this because they thought it was a really bad idea and which will cause revolt, dissension, and a destruction of the Indian Army, and all the generals who are not politicians, okay? One of them has become a politician post-retirement. I come from an armed forces family. I know nobody is interested in politics. So all of these people signed on to it and they don't like it at all.
I think we do not live in a country anymore where they have the option to say no. The country is being led by a man who dictates who does not ask for suggestions. We are in a autocracy with a man sitting on our head who just likes to, dictate his terms and conditions. I'm sure they must have not been asked, even if they were asked.
Yeah, I remember a very famous senior journalist who's currently on YouTube, was the editor of a newspaper who a few years ago was suggesting that an army coup was underway in a national headline. And that wasn't a long time ago either. That coup never happened. So let me get Savio in. Savio, let's be real. The reality check is that for a lot of families with kids who are 15 to 17, okay, they have been keeping in their minds that they have to show up for this army recruitment, and that is their plan of action. And if they clear the recruitment, because if they don't clear the recruitment standards are pretty high. If they don't clear the recruitment, they know that they will have to find a job and they'll have to do all the things that Gautam is saying, because not everybody who shows up for recruitment gets recruitment, but those who have the hope to be recruited know that they are sorted for next 15 years. Now, money or not, those people are now hassled and confused. Maybe enough to be a voting factor. Why do you think that their votes are not relevant?
I don't think any vote is not relevant, Rishabh. The intent or the plan behind the Agniveer was to try and create a force of disciplined youth that could contribute to the army. Now, you and I have both been to Israel together, and we've seen that young people in Israel do dedicate their life for 2 years to the army and then go on to do other things in society. Because the army is one institution, it's an institution really, that actually trains, disciplines, works on skills of individuals which would be utilized in service of the country directly in the army, or could be utilized in service of the country outside the army itself. Let me give you an example. If you look at the number of security guards in a situation, and that's not all the job that they can do, I'm just saying as an example, there are about 480,000 posts and positions that arise out of the security requirements in this country itself, and that's an industry that's growing. In fact, if you were to get far more professionals in that space, the Agniveers, if they are not in the army, can provide great amount of services within the security apparatus itself, and that's a growing sector. So you have to look at it as a training ability for our people, and young youths are getting drawn to it because they're getting an ability to get trained in an institution.
Yes. So unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it does cut both ways, because if you're talking about national security, you also want to attract the best of the best of the nation's youth to don a uniform. You don't necessarily should be thinking it's a great strategy that all those who cannot find employment elsewhere can be dumped into the army, because that's the army's job, is to provide jobs and pay a salary. That's not the army's job. No self-respecting armed forces man would even suggest that. So there might be the reverse. There might be people who will be tempted. And when these people go out, they are well trained, they have create a massive reserve pool. The average age of the fighting man goes down, which is a goal. Any general will tell you this, that to have younger people out in the field, it's like sports. That's the reality check. It's not ageism, it's a reality check. That there's a physicality to the job, and reducing the average age of the fighting man or woman is a desirable outcome for the army. So it cuts both ways, but I can understand the comfort for a lot of people in the current recruitment batch at least, who've been thinking, listen, we had a plan for the next 15 years and that's now out of the window. Okay, let's hop across to Renik, my colleague in Balurghat, where you're seeing some high drama breaking out as expected. Renik, what's going on?
सुबह 9 बजे तक 2 घंटे के पोलिंग टाइम में 60 के ऊपर कंप्लेन बालूरघाट से ईसीआई के पास जाया है, ऐसा ईसीआई की तरफ से कहा जा रहा है। यानी बालूरघाट में 2 घंटे के पोलिंग में अभी से ही जो वायलेंस का घटना सामने आ रहा है। सुकंद मुजुमदार की तरफ से भी क्लेम किया जा रहा है कि बालूरघाट में टीएमसी के वर्कर्स की तरफ से बीजेपी वर्कर्स को रोका जा रहा है, उनको पीटा भी जा रहा है। जैसे कि मैं जिस बूथ में हूँ, पातीराम हाई स्कूल बालूरघाट का, इसी जगह में भी बीजेपी के जो कंप्लेन है, बीजेपी का जो वर्कर्स, उनको पीटा गया है, उनको हटा दिया गया है, ऐसा कंप्लेन भी सुकांत मुजुमदार की तरफ से किया जा रहा है। मगर आपको मैं एक चीज दिखाना चाहूंगा कि सुबह 9 बजे है और इसी टाइम में भी लोगों का जो भीड़, इतना वायलेंस, इतना कंप्लेन आने के बावजूद भी लोग बाहर आ रहे हैं वोट देने के लिए, वो लोग शामिल हो रहे हैं। मैं एक बार पूछने का कोशिश करूंगा, आप लोग जो वोट देने के लिए आए हैं, तो आप लोगों का कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस कर रहे हैं आज?
देखिए, हम जो मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस करना चाहते हैं, अभी देश का जो विकास होगा, जो पार्टी हमारे लिए, देश के लिए कुछ करेगा, देश को आगे ले जाएगा, उसी के ऊपर फोकस करेंगे हम। ये तो मेरा मुद्दा है। अब बाकी का क्या है क्या नहीं है वो तो हमको पता नहीं सही।
दादा, सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आए हैं, तो कौन से कारण में सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आए हैं? सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए क्यों आए हैं?
जल्दी होगा वही लिए।
दादा, कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस करेंगे? दादा, कौन से मुद्दा रहेगा फोकस में?
अभी तो नहीं बता सकते, देखते हैं।
आपको देखते तो लगता है आप नौजवान हो, कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस करके वोट देने के लिए आए हैं?
मैंने जो पहले बोला था, मेरा ये फर्स्ट टाइम है, तो पॉलिटिकल लीडर जो स्ट्रांग होगा तो उसको ही तो वोट देना के कारण होगा, क्योंकि वही कंट्री को अफोर्ड कर पाएंगे, इसी वजह से।
दादा, सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आए हैं, तो कौन से कारण में सुबह सुबह ভোট देने के लिए आना?
আমি বুঝতে পারলাম না।
সকাল সকাল ভোট দিতে এসেছেন কি কারণে?
সকাল সকাল আসছে রোদের তাপের,
गर्मी मेन कारण में। दादा, सुबह सुबह आए हैं, कौन से कारण फोकस करेंगे?
গরমের জন্য।
गर्मी। और कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस रहेगा आज? कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर কি কাজের উপর, ডেভেলপমেন্ট, উন্নতি, কি কাজের উপর फोकस रखবেন?
দেখা যাক কি হচ্ছে।
दादा, कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस रहेगा?
ये बोलेगा।
दादा, सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आए हैं, तो कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस करेंगे आप लोग?
यंग जनरेशन को कोई नौकरी मिले और क्या, यंग जनरेशन को पहले देना पड़ेगा।
सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आने का क्या कारण है? गर्मी मेन कारण है क्या?
हाँ, दोपहर में इतना 42, 43 या 40 डिग्री सेंटीग्रेड तापमात्रा चला होता है, तो सुबह सुबह में थोड़ा कम होगा टेम्परेचर।
तो ये बालूरघाट में भी पहले भी तो हुआ था कि वायलेंस का एक डर रहता है, वायलेंस का डर क्या है आप लोग?
नहीं, यहाँ पर ऐसे कोई कभी हुआ भी नहीं, और पता नहीं बाद में क्या होगा, लेकिन अभी तक कोई वायलेंस नहीं हुआ यहाँ पर।
दादा, सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आए हैं, तो क्या कारण है?
बात बोलिए, हिंदी नहीं चलेगा।
तो हिंदी में बहुत सारे लोगों को दिक्कत है, मगर फिर भी वो लोग कह रहे हैं कि सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आने के लिए मेन कारण है गर्मी, और उसके साथ साथ ही सब लोगों का जो मुद्दा है डेवलपमेंट के ऊपर फोकस रहेगा, और उसके साथ साथ ही जो स्टेट का उन्नति है उसके ऊपर भी नजर रहेगा। बहुत सारे महिलाओं भी इधर है, मैं एक बार बात करने की कोशिश करूंगा। मैडम, आज सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आए हैं, तो कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस करेंगे? कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस रहेगा मैडम? कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस रहेगा?
लाइन थोड़ी ज़्यादा होनी चाहिए थी, मतलब सीनियर सिटीजन्स के लिए अलग लाइन होता तो बहुत अच्छा होता।
तो सुबह सुबह वोट देने का मेन कारण क्या है?
ये गर्मी है और क्या।
मैडम, सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आए हैं, तो मेन कारण क्या है सुबह सुबह वोट देने का?
गर्मी है बहुत, सुबह थोड़ा मौसम ठीक रहता है इसीलिए।
कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस करेंगे?
ये लाइन थोड़ा मतलब सीनियर सिटीजन के लिए।
इलेक्शन में कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस करेंगे? स्टेट का डेवलपमेंट या
पूरा देश के लिए?
मैं कोशिश करूंगा औरों से बात करने के लिए। मैडम, सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आए हैं, तो कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस रहेगा, और सुबह क्यों वोट देने के लिए आए?
বাংলায় বলুন না, সেটা দেখা যাবে, ওটা কে বলার কথা, ভোট সিক্রেট।
मैडम, सुबह सुबह वोट देने के लिए आए हैं, तो क्या कारण है सुबह सुबह वोट देने का?
क्या करेगा, वोट देगा चले जाएगा।
क्या कारण?
गर्मी के वजह से।
कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस करके आज मतदान करने के लिए आए?
तो रिजल्ट के बाद ही
कौन से मुद्दा, ये 5 साल में जो प्लानिंग हुआ था, क्या आप लोगों का फुलफिल हुआ?
इसके लिए जो है 5 साल में वो।
ओके
मैडम, कौन से मुद्दे के ऊपर फोकस करेंगे?
Okay, we'll come back to this conversation. This Renik was there in Cooch Behar last week, and people out there were being a lot more reticent to speak about anything. And at least you're noticing in Balurghat that this conversation is happening, face-off happening with the TMC and BJP is no surprise. Every election in Bengal in the past 10 years has been an ugly one. Not to say that when the left was in power and Mamata Banerjee was challenging them, it wasn't ugly then also, but less cameras were following it, less mobile phones were following it. Now it's more easily available, and that's unhappy news for anybody who's in Bengal. Everybody wants to just get out there and vote in as many numbers as possible. We're going to take a break. Just a minute. We come back from across the country to keep giving you flavor of what is going on, because obviously the one thing that is on our minds, who's winning this election? Let's find out from the people, as many as you can speak to. See you in a minute.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.